Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss takes us through the latest market movements this afternoon. Gary, as always, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Let's start with the overall market movements that we saw today. I mentioned in my intro that the JSE has been quite volatile throughout most of this week. Today, not such a bad day. What would you say were some of the major contributors?
Well, it was an incredibly heavy news day, and at lunchtime we didn't look as good as we did at close. So, the big move higher was certainly in the resources and the industrials. So resources well up over 2.6%, industrials up well over 3%. So that was led, I think, partly by that jump we saw in Anglo-American Platinum, up over 7% on the day, on the back of the announcement that they had concluded their negotiations with labor unions, and that hopefully people will be returning to work. That, I think, brought a little bit of optimism to the platinum sector. We saw the likes of Impala Platinum up over 6%, Sibanye-Stillwater, which is suffering with its own labor issues, up over 5%. So certainly taking some heart there. But we also saw a big rebound in the Naspers process counters. They both up almost 5%, and that helping to lift the industrial index nicely. But a very, very heavy day of news. So there's all sorts of things we can chat about, from Numpack to Lewis to trading statements out of Mr. Price to Tsogo Sun, and of course the news around African Bank buying Grindrod Bank. So it's certainly been a busy day for news flow, and as well as US GDP numbers. So a lot going on, but market liking it at least. Now on the currency front, not too much change. So US dollar is fairly stable around 15.75. We've seen the gold price moderate slightly, I think maybe with a little bit of risk on trade creeping back into the market. Gold hovering at around at least $1,845 per ounce. With Brent crude oil also ticking marginally higher, up to $113 per barrel.
No, absolutely. You've done a nice intro into all the juicy stories we're about to delve into in as much time as we do have. And I want to start with African Bank and that announcement that was made today, Grindrod letting go of the bank and it being bought up by African Bank. Your thoughts on this particular deal, but also just a little context as to who exactly Grindrod Bank is in terms of the market that they cater for.
So Grindrod Bank is it's been part of the Grindrod stable for a long time, and I think the rumors have been circulating that they would unbundle the bank at some point, and that there were potential buyers out there. I think what really shocked the market was just the size of the deal. So, 1.5 billion is probably double what I think the market was expecting anyone to pay for the bank. But this, the whole deal, I think, works very, very well for both parties, because obviously African Bank, which everyone will remember from 2014, going into business rescue, is now in a position where I think it probably will be relisted. Remember, South African Reserve Bank is a large shareholder of African Bank, and they've already indicated that we probably will see a relisting of African Bank securities. And they've got an aggressive target, one, to double their retail customer base, but also to move into business banking. And I think Grindrod Bank at least is very I suppose well penetrated in the business banking markets, and I think that will work well for African Bank's strategy. So nice to see that coming to the market, and hopefully both parties win out of it.
Yeah, Gary, we have run out of time, but I really wanted to engage on Numpack. So they more than double their profits, but the CEO did get in a bit of trouble because of all that debt that he's raked up.
Well, I think it's been a very difficult time for Numpack, let's face it. So around, let's say 70% of their revenue comes from their metal business, so essentially their BevCam business, with about 20% coming from plastics. Now, metals, obviously, with the rise in commodity prices, have seen big cost increases. So they have a much higher working capital requirement than they did previously. So while revenue was up 24%, headline earnings more than doubling, a much larger working capital requirement, and still plastics under a little bit of pressure as well. So, a lot going on underneath Numpack, and obviously dealing with all the supply chain issues that we've seen, thanks to COVID and the various lockdowns internationally. But overall, I think a good set of results. Maybe cut the CEO a little bit of slack.
You'll cut him some slack indeed, Gary Booysen. Thank you very much for your time. I was hoping we'd also talk about Tsogo Sun. They're rebranding back to Southern Sun, and I wanted to understand the strategy there, but we'll catch up about that another time. Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss, thank you very much for your time this evening.